Everyone, can you hear me? Yeah. Hi, good morning. I'm Urvashi Butalia. I'm delighted to introduce this session with these two remarkable women who have been trying to get together to talk for absolutely ages. So gratitude to the Apeejay Kolkata Festival for actually putting this session on stage. So we have on stage Akkai Padmashali. Akkai, you know, she already asked a question, quite a pointed question in the earlier session about in the battle for trans rights and trans identities, what is the solidarity that trans people can call upon? Is there anything at all? Akkai is an activist, a trans rights activist, a writer, a campaigner, a political being, and many other things. And she wears the most stunning saris because she loves wearing saris. And she's also the author of a wonderful book that we are proud to publish called A Small Step in a Long Journey, which is there and which Anindya will show you. Anindya Hajra is also a trans rights activist who has been working for many, many years, who set up an NGO called Pratyay, which is based here in Kolkata, and which campaigns for the economic rights and rights to livelihood and so on. And Anindya is also a public speaker and has spoken on trans identities and trans rights in many places. Somebody that personally I have found really, really fascinating to listen to. Also serves on the boards of several organizations, both within India and outside. And the two of them will be in conversation with each other. So I will leave you both to talk and we will all listen. Thank you.
Oh, must you go away?
I'll be sitting right
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Urvashi. Thank you to the space, to the organizers of this space, to the fabulous audience who have come. Of course, I am kind of inclined to think it was really for Alice Walker. I mean, I solely came for that. I mean, had it not been for her, I wouldn't possibly have come so early. But here's a friend, here's a dear colleague, here's a dear comrade, as I call it. And I'll sort of jump straight into the book. Someone I've known her work very intimately over the past several years. I would just like Akkai to respond to, I mean, of course, I'm not going to sort of give away the details from the book, which I intend all of you to kind of buy and read and explore. But I would ask Akkai that in your preface, in the book's preface, which is titled Beyond Victimhood, you state quite clearly on why you wanted to write this book. You acknowledge reading the autobiographies of other transgender activists that have been published in India recently. So I'm particularly drawn to the way you make a distinction when you say you could not connect to those stories, as they seem to be based on the idea of Ayo Papa, which I have in my head translated as sympathy, seeking cultural acceptance, where you say you don't want that. You don't want that sympathy, for sure. So can you tell us about this point of departure from where you wanted to write your own memoir for this audience?
Thank you, APJ, for having this panel in this literary festival. And I am from Bangalore. And I think I should go back to my previous session where Alice Walker was talking about being a black woman, talking about feminism. I think more in terms of our life matters. In that context, you know globally how because of your gender, sexuality, because of your class, because of your region, because of your race, how you are being discriminated structurally, systematically, traditionally, culturally, politically, economically, and socially. if you go back to see the Indian history that we are talking today, history is in the context of a man who is so-called dominated in his perspective. But coming back to the sexual minorities, where I am being part of this community, reading back many other memoirs, autobiographies, stories of people, fictions, and whatever you can keep on labeling them, I somewhere found I'm a transgender woman, I'm a hijra, I'm a so-and-so person, was all in more in terms of, okay, yo papa, they are something so different, like different, they are transgender people, they do sex work, they do begging, so that's why we should accept them. No, that's not my question. I'm here, it's okay to be a sex worker, it's okay to be a beggar, it's okay to be a black and a sexual minority, and why for whom you're going to satisfy your identity and sexuality. And as a person, I am not here to satisfy my identity and my sexuality before this largest patriarchal society. I'm here to satisfy myself, my heart, my feelings, my satisfaction. In the process of that, reading such papers or stories, I found somewhere that people are only talking about Ayo Papa. Ayo Papa means very sympathetic way of requesting someone to accept the way you are. I am not for sympathy. All these decades, centuries and centuries and centuries, go back to 12th century, what Basavana has said. Go back to 12th century, what many people, many poets, many other like people have spoken about social justice or accepting the people the way you are. I think going back to 12th century and the 21st century, we are here today, I somehow did not find these books have left our identities, are not really challenging the notion of patriarchy, are really not challenging the issue that we are going through and facing in such, the so-called majoritarian concept, people who have been, structured the society for their comfortableness. Going back to that as a one. Second thing is about within the audience that we are here, how many of my people are sitting here? It is not about the head count, it's about politically more important, socially more important. When you say, talking about this concept of man, woman, cis woman, who decides this? Who has a right to decide that? I think we need to have our, like our spaces to occupy certain positions, to raise my voice and say that I am here and my voice also matters.
So it's interesting that how you center the whole element of voice and positionality, how you bring in that to the absolute center. And I think that's very true of writing that comes from an invocation of the margins. Because I think that the interrelationship that you build between what is at the center and what gets constituted to be at the center and what remains in the margins is a very important one. But at the same time, to say that these are shifting spaces, these gets constructed and deconstructed, and they also have their own, like I keep saying, for example, the space of human rights also has its centers and peripheries. For example, there are certain issues that would, and there is, this is something that activist writer Arvind Narayan has sort of spoken about, who speaks about the hierarchies in these very spaces, the hierarchy of oppression. And I remember reading this, that what Arvind had written, asking this question, is that how is the torture of a radical left supporter, how is that different from the torture that Hijra and trans persons experience at the hands of the state? And so coming there, I think in the same preface that you have written in this memoir of yours, you invoke the element of victimhood. You say quite emphatically, talking of victimhood is not enough. And perhaps there is this universal agreement where erasing the material evidence of victimhood, or at least what constitutes victimhood, there is a need to move away from that. There is a need to almost delegitimize it. There's sometimes a deep patronizing that sort of exists around it. Yet the empirical truth of being made victims of circumstances, of structures around us never escapes certainly a trans person, as it does not escape for other marginalized people. So what do you have to say about this burden, this labor that trans persons are expected to perform, to write or present with the choicest experiences of theirs, which is like the tej patta in your curry, the bay leaf in your curry, that it is there just enough to lend flavor, that it lends flavor to the quality of your writing. But in the end, you need to discard it. You need to discard it for something greater, something more universal. So how do you build a narrative which is not in spite of victimhood, but because of it, because of the legitimacy that it serves?
I go back to Alex Walker, what she mentioned. Because again, she said, being a black and being part of the feminist movement, and how she was also discriminated. And she said clearly, I don't want to sit in a corner and keep on crying because I'm a black and people may think that I'm a victim. Same thing also applies to the movement of sexual minorities here. Because you're a gender minority, because you're a sexual minority, because you're a sex in minority, I'm not a victim. Though I have been experienced family non-acceptance, partners violence, intimacy, relationships, and they, like in the name of relationship, how you have been excluded, how the amount of dominance that you go through. And because in the name of sex work and begging, as a community you are facing that, the so-called social construct norms which decides your identity, which decides your sexuality, fine, but how can the society do that so? That I always self-reflect to myself. I was a victim. I am a victim. I was physically abused. I was assaulted. I was raped. I was gang raped. Molestation happened. In each and every sector, wherever I go, there was a huge amount of discrimination. That's all okay for me. But if I see from a context of victim, that's okay. How do you overcome the victim? It's okay, I experienced this rape and violence and discrimination, but still, I want to fight against the perpetrator. Who are this perpetrator? The larger society is a perpetrator. This man is a perpetrator. The domination is a perpetrator. And who has given the power for them to perpetrate against the voiceless communities? That could be women, physically challenged, sex workers, sexual minorities, the blacks, the Dalits, the Muslims, whoever that could be. But the question is, how do you overcome beyond victimhood is always something that disturbs me a lot. I think whatever I wanted to say in the thing that is brought in the book. Think beyond victimhood. The Delhi gang rape happened 2013. I think every day, every single minute, we experience rape. How do you bring that to the public forum for discourse and discussion? Yes, we have been victims of many boxes. But how do you fight against that victimhood? Beyond victim. How do you think that perception? I think that needs to be brought in such social discourse.
No, precisely. It is about that movement that you kind of mark excellently in your book, and which is such a heady. This book is so heady, in the sense that I think there is material here for at least 5 more books for you to write, and I mean the fact that it is also so dense and to go through it at one go is really difficult. Okay, I also feel that it is a glimpse into what trans lives are about, but it is also, I think what is fascinating for me in how you have written this book, and I'll only give out this much, is this, that you seem to pose several questions, very, very existential questions, and I thought that you would help. You would sort of leave it at that, but you don't. You ask these very difficult questions, and I feel that, she's pushing us into the deep end of the pool, and many of us may not know how to swim because this is such a heady pool in itself from what Akkai introduces. But she's there also as someone who helps you navigate this terrain. I mean, and I see this, and I think it's connected to the fact that in your acknowledgements, for example, you write, and I quote from your book, "I would like to thank my clients who made my livelihood possible as a sex worker." Just before this, in the afterword, you write, "When I tell a story about my experience, those who hear that story are going on the same journey along with me. For now, you are Akkai too." So, can you tell us about this shift, this act of reassignment that you constantly author throughout the book, with an almost, I mean, like a Theravada Buddhist approach on love and compassion and a sympathetic joy? Despite the most debilitating hardships that you've experienced, how do you manage to traverse these spaces? Perhaps what you asked Alice in the morning.
Writing book is not so easy, it's so difficult. I'm a 10th standard mathematics failed person. Thanks to Corona, COVID of 2019, 2020 and 2021. Thanks to Gauri Vijay Kumar, who is sitting in America in the Brandeis University, Boston. I told her, "Gauri, I am feeling alone. I want to write something." Because many of my friends are dying, my relatives are dying, my ex-partners are dying. So how do I be responsible? Knowing that I may also die, but before I die, let me put something on paper. I told Gauri, "Gauri, I am very lazy to write. I will talk to you." So we sat for 4 months on the Zoom. I was sharing my stories here, and because Gauri knows Kannada and English both. And I was sharing stories on Zoom. She was writing, everything happened. Finally, the book, what we expected, and we approached Zuban, and Urvashi is also here. I think when we approached Zuban, I told, "This is the book I'm writing." She said, not even taking a single second, "Okay, we are going to do this." Okay, that gave me some boost. And knowing that the first book that came on, like in Kannada language in Karnataka, and then it was translated to Malayalam, right? The other one was in our English. Now it's been going to be translated to, like into multiple languages, and Zuban is coordinating the process. Now, sharing story is not so easy. I'm just 38 years, Ashte. Today I'm 38 years. Age is for age and not for us. We should celebrate our identities, celebrate our ages. Then meanwhile, sharing story is not so easy in India. Capturing your 28, 30 years of your journey, putting it on the paper, sharing that in each and every, phrases. When I was a sex worker, what happened? Childhood, what happened? Political nature, what happened? How this fascist notion are dividing ruling the state is a big thing. So pointing out each and every story was not so easy for me. I was so aggressive. I was so patient, I was so emotional, I was crying, I was so joyous, I was laughing, I was making fun. All this process was part of my, like writing the book. It's a small step in a long journey. But what was disturbing me a lot, many people who read the book, I remember Ruth Vanitas and Salim Kidwai's book, Same-Sex Love in India, which came almost 25 years ago in the country. I think these society did not accepted the book. What is the same sex? Highly not possible. Today we say when Sushil Kumar Modi of the BJP, who is also the member of parliament, and say, we are something called westernized notion, we raise our voice and say, "Shut your mouth, we are this. This is our existence and this is our identity." So you build that guts, and you're saying that I am not an anti-social element, I am part of nature. I am part of the society. I am part of this world. I am just a human being. I am also breathing and you are also breathing. If you stop your breath, you are dead. I am stop my breath, I am dead. In the process of your born to the death, who are you to judge and decide people's issues, people's identities, and people's politics? In that journey, I think I ensured after reading a book, you can't sit quiet. And that's why Vrinda Grover says, Akkai means disturb. she disturbs. So I'm disturbing people's heart to ensure and make them be responsible. That's why I want to travel with your journey. You need to travel with my journey. That's how the social movement can change to accept the way people, whatever they are today.
She does it with such elan, because that's precisely what I was struck by, because she's so difficult and yet she's so compassionate at the same time. I mean, it's like being touched by this live wire called Akkai. No, I'll sort of shift gear. Because this book is such a dense book, because the experiences, the weight of the experiences are so phenomenal. Have you had a moment to reflect after writing? It's not been a while, but I would still ask this. That is there a part in the book that you feel you could have edited out? Is there a part in the book or portions that you feel that you could have written differently?
That's what my conversation with Urvashi here, with Professor Dominic, also with Professor Gauri Vijay Kumar. I told I want to speak the truth. And the truth has to be in paper. Do you agree with that? They said, yes, at most we can do that so. But there were some terminologies which were not supposed to be used on the book that was been removed from, Zuban publisher. That's fine. But still, almost the story what is said is on paper. I'm not fear. I'm not scared. I want to speak the truth, and the truth needs to be understood by this society. I think not even a single piece that has been cut down, but everything is on paper. But as I mentioned, some parts also need to be covered. Maybe I can bring it in my volume 2, but no time, and I'm lazy to write. Again, I should catch Urvashi to do, please sit with me, I'll talk to you. yeah, I'm just in the process.
No, I mean, I understand what you're saying, because it's also, for us, there is this imperative to present our truth in a certain way, and I also want to sort of invoke the volume that Zuban had published earlier, which was Revati's book, which is The Truth About Me. So there is often this invocation of what is considered to be the truth, our truth, and where is the space for us to be, where is the space for us to make these interventions where we perhaps want to tell a story, we want to tell the story of our lives, we want to tell what we have experienced as truth, but there is also this burden for us to explain. There is often this burden that is placed on trans folks, especially to educate and explain. There are people who have come up to us and say, oh, can you tell this for us? I mean, I find that to be an unequal burden that is placed on us, and an unequal expectation often. Because why would it be so difficult for anybody in today's day and age to find out, if you will, with the intent about what you want to know, and also not come and approach in a manner that is appropriate, which we all have. Yeah. There is almost a vicariousness to that question that is thrown at us. Yeah. But I think, moving gear, Akkai, is there a part in this book that you really found great joy to write? I mean, like, there is a passage. Is there any particular part of the book that you think that you would like to say, oh, you went back to that with great joy? Because there are passages that are, of course, very, very dark.
You put me in the well. This book...
a very difficult task, I must say.
This book compromises of, as I mentioned, emotion, struggle, challenging, fighting. But one thing what I remember in India, when I was accepted by my family, just recently, 5-6 years ago, I think I had been to my family back. When I went back to my family, there was also a condition. I should not wear sari, and they asked me to wear this kurta, jubba pajama like that. I said, no, sorry, I want to come in sari back. I wore my mother's silk sari and went back. When I went back, I think I was accepted by the whole family. Having an amount of resistance there, but still, I think when the family accepts the way you are, I think the whole world is accepted for you. The other thing what I wanted to really say about to remember your clients. 25 years ago, my clients was giving me 25 paisa, 50 paisa, 1 rupee, 2 rupee. After performing sex, you know, we're still having that relationship. Now we are good friends today. We get it. And obviously when the social sector is slowly started to accept the way you are, you need to celebrate being part of that social, you know, acceptance. But I don't say that does that only mean about only acceptance, but still there's a lot more challenges each and every time that we face in occupying our social spaces, public spaces, you know, and it's not so easy. It's not so easy. And even to share our stories, Akkai may speak, Anindya may speak. Many of my community members who are in streets are not able to speak. Why they are so aggressive? Because you are not accepted us, that's why we are so aggressive. I was so rude. I was so abusive. I was so arrogant to, with people 25 years ago. But today, I'm very polite. As Urvashi said, I wear so beautiful saris, and my journey is towards to wear the sari, to be a woman, and say that I'm a woman without vagina, uterus, breast, periods, and I can also satisfy myself sexually and also men sexually. But the so-called, the other movement, in particularly the feminist movement or the so-called the women's movement, where they did not accept the transgender women as women. You had an enormous amount of fight. We work with differences, but still we say we are women too. I think that conversation needs to happen, and such spaces needs to listen to our stories. That includes intersex, trans man, the lesbian, you know, the aqua, the nirvan, the hijras. We should be going to such spaces.
Yes, thank you. We're running close to this to closing this session, but I just want to talk about a bit of what I found fascinating, and I wanted to learn a little bit more from the book. Is that your mobile phone ring is this brilliant song by S. Janaki called Nane Bhagyavati. And when I call you, I often wish that Akkai picks up the phone a minute later, because then I can go back, listen to that song. And it's a song from the 1974 film Srinivasa Kalyana, directed by Vijay and starring superstar Rajkumar and Saroja Devi Manjula. Do you want to tell us, for example, a little more from the experience of the album Songs of the Caravan, where you sang along with 9 other transgender persons? I was actually wanting to know a little bit more about your relationship with music in your book. And if you may, please also sing us a song.
The thing which my mobile phone talks about, Nane Bhagyavati, Indu Nane Punyavati, Govinda Ninninda Ananda Hondiruva Nane Bhagyavati, Indu Nane Punyavati. I wanted to be a classical singer, but because of my identity, I was thrown out of the school. And my grandmother was a Vidhushi, Srimati Kamalamma. She refused me to teach the classical music. She assumed that if I learn the classical music, I may still become more feminine. So I was quit. But my passion to learn the classical music did not, it end there. But I was watching Chandana, the government channel, every Saturday 9 to 10 o'clock, watching that time in particular, and started to learn the music. I think how this Caravan albums also gave the opportunity for me to be part of the other 9 transgender people. I was also one of them. And the Bhagya, the Lakshmi Varamma, Nammamma ni Saubhagya, the Lakshmi Varamma. This song also got the Limca Award in that Caravan albums. So that's how, also sometimes the singing, this compassion of singing and being the way also which releases your stress. I also keep composing songs. Why are you killing people in the name of sexuality? We are also human beings. We also have dignity. When the Section 377 was violating our rights, again I brought this phrase saying that, why are you killing people in the name of Section 377? We are also human beings. We also have dignity. I think you can really bring the change in society. Not only fight down, down, Sarkara, down, down, no. You can also bring this way of another form of, resisting and fighting against. Ashte.
Is there space for quick questions that we may want to take from the floor? There's just about 3 minutes, so maybe very quick couple of questions. And I have one question for Urvashi.
May I ask?
Yes, please.
Thank you for bringing us so much joy with your singing. Akkai, when you began the conversation, you said you framed the idea of my people in political and social terms. Could you explain why you chose to work with an indie publisher instead of going ahead with a corporate publisher? Because that seems like an extension of your political convictions.
Interesting question. I think we are part of social justice movement. We are part of human rights defenders movement. We are part of civil society gathering. I think I come from that background. Knowing that there are so many corporate, big companies who are willing to publish my book, they all came with an offer. But we also have our own discussions in our feminist circles, in our community circles, when we find we are very closer to such publisher. And Zuban, something for our community is very much closer. Knowing that there is also Penguin, there is also knowing other publishers who are very much positively accepting people's issue in such movement process. I think I personally felt Zuban was something beyond, with these publishers. I think we also found that space. I think Urvashi is not just a publisher. She's a friend, she's a comrade, she's an author, and she's more in terms of she's very open mind to accept people's issue. That was we were looking for, and thanks to our Zuban publishers.
There was this other, yes, please.
Okay, hi. Oh my God. Okay, so I'm going to be super honest here. I ideally came here for, just as ma'am said, to see Alice Walker, but then I heard your question, and I must say I was left absolutely flabbergasted. And right now, I'm just in love with you, I must say.
Oh, but, love you too.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. But my question is I want to hear an observation, right? I want to hear your opinion on this. It's just that, in the religion of Hinduism, as we see, many families, including my own family, we have called, as we say, Mausis in our own house when a new child is born, to give the child blessings, to give the child, love, so that they prosper in life, become successful, and all of that. And even in some of the books like Mahabharata and Ramayana, we have seen so much presence of the transgender community, right? So why is it that as individuals, as you said, the heteronormative and the heterosexual community, why are we so selfish? Like, why do we only need blessings from the transgender community? And apart from that, they're just, say, sex workers, and that is it. So why is it that? Why do you think that's our psychology? So.
And what's your name?
My name is Alipriya.
Anupriya?
Alipriya. Alipriya.
Alipriya's question is to all the majoritarians, heterosexual cis women, heterosexual men. Please respond to Alipriya. But in terms of, if you go back to the histories and herstories, we keep sharing stories about Ramayana was saying like this, Mahabharata was saying like this, Ayyappa Harihara Putra was saying like this. Ayo, since 25 years I'm only listening stories. I want to see Ayyappa. Where is Ayyappa? Where is Sri Krishna? 16,000 wives. Ayo, how he was performing sex with 16,000 people? To perform sex and sexual act, it takes at least minimum half an hour. To understand, more than that sometimes. So, it's just 40 seconds more. So, in that way, I am really fed up of stories here. I have experienced, I'm sharing my story, and what is the solution? 21st century needs to have solutions than stories. Haudalva, I think I totally endorse what you said. I only want to say that, Ashte.
Okay, so the last 15, 20 seconds. But this question goes out to Urvashi precisely because you've been such an important presence and a facilitating presence for many of these memoirs, and not just trans memoirs, but so many women and people have found space in your publishing enterprise. So I want to sort of ask this question in this quagmire of publishing and distributing and distribution of books. What are the hindrances that you see, or the control in the flow of money and capital and resources, both for the space of independent publishing, but also to projects that you support, or independent publishing houses like yours that support, down to the very fact that what determines as to how much royalties that you're able to that is possible to give out to authors and also trans authors in that sense. Yeah.
Anindya, that's a very big question. And I can't do justice to it in 30 seconds, but I shan't take time. I'll just tell you that it's damn tough for independent publishers to get any kind of eyeballs, as they say, to get any visual this thing. And that's not to do with the quality of what we publish. It's to do with the way the market is structured. So if you look at airport stands, for example, you will never find Akkai's book or anything like that there. You'll never find any of our Dalit authors there. Why? Because airport bookstores have to be paid by rich publishers almost 50,000 rupees a month to get the books displayed, which is why you only see Amish and XYZ, because only those publishers can afford that. But that doesn't mean that we don't publish these voices. We have to, and we have to find alternate ways to get them out. And it is just as it is tough for you and for black women to make themselves heard in a mainstream that is hostile to the kind of work we are trying to do, so also it is for us. But that's what makes it more challenging and exciting. And when somebody chooses to go with you, as Akkai does, as she could have gone with anybody big, it's a real honor. So that's what keeps us going.
Thank you. And Akkai, just as she says, Ashte, are we done? Okay. We are done then. Thank you.